Hi dear friends, welcome to another video on Tableau. In this demo, I'm going to introduce you to quick table calculation, which is one of the most powerful and easy to use calculation features available on Tableau. The list that I have here, the table that I have here is a cross tab of multiple data fields that are broken down by the year and month. So, um, and I have performed a quick table calculation on the basis of a running total. Let me begin by showing you how you can actually create this crosstab and then explain how you can use the quick table calculation to perform a variety of computation on your table. So to begin with, we can bring in since we are looking at the year and the month, we can bring in the date variable here. We can expand it to quarters and months, and we could just remove the quarter out. We would like to look at the year and the month. So the good thing is that both of these variable are here as discrete, so we don't have to worry about it. When you're dealing with tables and when you're dealing with discrete data, especially when you're trying to plot a table spreadsheet, always make sure that you have the format on discrete. And let's say we'd like to bring the distinct count of orders, which is the distinct count of orders that have happened according to those time series. And the problem here you see is that we're bringing it on our shelf, but it's coming as a measure, and it's because it's color coded in green. So, as I've said, when your variable is color coded in green, then it represents a measure. And when you bring a discrete or dimension variable and a measure variable together, then you're looking at a product that has more visualization essence to it or chart to it, as you can see in this case. So we need to change that to discrete as well so we can get a crosstab. And then the next field I'm going to bring will be the same one because this is going to be this is going to be the field that I will perform the quick table calculation on. I'll also change this to discrete. And as you can see now we have the year, the month, the distinct count repeated twice. And let me just expand these columns here so that you can have great visual on these fields. All right, so there are a variety of ways that you can actually access the quick table calculation. You can actually do it via by clicking on that specific variable for your measures on the shelf, or if you bring it as a text, for instance, if you bring it as a text label here on your text field, then you can do it from here as well. So there are multiple ways to approach it, but I would do it on the shelf so that the shelf, the good thing about the shelf is that it automatically changes the name, and we can also look at the tooltip to see what the explanation are for each of those calculations. So let's begin with the first one, which is a running total. A running total is simply the total of each of these fields, of each of the records accumulated as the list goes down. So as you can see, as the list goes down, the numbers are added and accumulated in a running total manner. And as you go down the list, this is where you see the last record, and which represents the accumulative total of all the records. So a running total is may be helpful depending on what you're trying to aim. But instead of doing a sum of each of these records for the next record here, as you would do in Excel, or even writing a accumulative function in R, Tableau can easily do that for you. And again, a lot of these calculations that are available in the quick table calculation are simple to use. But if you were to use manual or write the functions for it in other languages, then it could be pretty robust and complex. So that's one of the great advantage of using Tableau because it really allows you these privilege to be able to perform calculation easily. The second one is the difference, and as the name actually implies, it's the difference between each of the records. So the total number of distinct count of orders were 28 in January, and then it was 30 in February, and it's so the difference between the 28th in January and February 30 is 2. The first record is null because we are pretty much counting we are starting our count on the second record and going back on the first record. So then we have 30 because there's a difference of 30 between 60 and 30. And then there's a difference of 9, which is counting the difference between 69 and 60. And then there's a difference of 1, which is accounted for 70 and 69. So that's what the difference does. Percent different is pretty much a difference, but it's broken down in terms of percentage. So the percentage of difference between 30 and 28 is 7.1 1%. So 30 is 7.1% higher than 28, and then 60 is 100% higher than 30, and 69 is 15% higher than 60. And as you go down the list, you'll see that the differences are uh, described in terms of percentage. And I see that the decimal points after the absolute number are really great. So you can change this, just a quick note on that. You can change that by pretty much clicking on that relevant variable on your shelf, and you can go to format where you can change, go to percentage, and you can change the decimal points to as many as you want. So I will just do Control Z. And so now let's look at the fourth calculation, which is percentage of total or total percentage. So what this calculation does is that for each of the records, it calculates what proportion does a record draws from the total sum of that variable. In other words, how many percent does that record actually contribute to the overall total? So click on it and you would see all the values coming as null, and that's because we need to make sure that our compute using is set on the right computation source, in which case Tableau is asking us, how would you like to compute across the table, down the list, on the pane going down, on the cells, all of that are taken into the account while you're doing computation. And I'll have a different video to explain how computation plays a role while you're performing calculation across your table. But in which case, since we are dealing with the ship date variable, in that case, we're going to select ship date, and there you go. It automatically brings in the percentage or proportion of each of the month's sales to the overall sales percentage. So as you can see, we can add all of these percentage, and we can sum it up to 100%. So let's say we bring the text count here and say do a total sum, and then run a quick table calculation on percent of total, and there you go. As you can see, the total percentage of each of these records sums up to 100%. So the fifth one is the rank. So ranking shows where your record or where your data point falls in comparison to the other records, the other data points in your distribution or in your table. So, for example, January is the 48 in the ranking of number of sales throughout the years. Let's look for the first one now. Number one. So here you go. 252. So this must be the maximum number, the highest number available. So this counts as number one. So again, the count calculation provides a, so again, the ranking calculation provides us with the ranking number of each of our data points or records in our in our table. And percentile almost brings up the same thing, except that it gives us where our data is in terms of the percentiles. And so, in order for me to show what a percentile really is, allow me to bring this onto a text box and then run a percentile calculation and sort of ascending all the way to descending. You can see we have the percentile ranking for each of these records populated, and the only difference is that the percentile starts from the first month of the year and ends in the last month of the year because it's broken down in the cluster of years. And as you can see, let's say number 118 is located on the 77 percentile. It has a 77% percentile ranking. In other words, it's standing all of the data before 134. It's at it's at 77% or below, and 134 is the position of 134 is at 77 percentile in the distribution of all the count of orders in the year 2014. Same thing with 2015, where the first number 36 starts at 6.25 percentile, going down all the way to number 144, which stands at 83.3 percentile. So again, percentile is pretty much ranking, except that we're looking at percentage-based ranking of our distribution, our table. And then next one we have the moving average, and moving average is pretty much the average of our data points. And Tableau by default goes back two records. So that means that each that our moving average for 29 will be the sum of these two records divided by their distinct count, and then the average for 39.3 is the average of all these three divided by distinct count. So it goes back two data points. So in other words, it will be the month that we're looking at, and then 2 months above it or before that. So the moving average is also called running average, however you would like to call it. Sometimes you could go 3 or 4 months depending on what the requirements are. But moving average again is simply put, it's the average cumulative average moving back to uh, uh, to 2 or 3 increments to the past. So the next one is the YTD total, and remember that all the calculations after moving average, including YTD total, compound growth rate, year-over-year growth, and YTD growth, these these calculations, these four calculations, only applies or only works with variables that have date data type, as you can as we have date data type on this table. So these functionalities are active and available to use. So YTD total. And before I go there, let me show you my other workbook where I don't have, for example, I don't have the year date data type, and you will see that that functionality will not be available to use on the quick table calculation, as you can see, because there's no involvement of date on this table. Therefore, all these four functionalities are inactive in our quick table calculation. All right, let me go back to the table. And so the YTD total pretty much explains the total of pretty much accumulative total of of our concerned variable, in which case, as you can see, we go from 30, which is this number, and then these numbers add up, and then these numbers add up, pretty much accumulative sum of these records shown in the last record. And as you can see, and it's because YTD it's year to date, so you would see that the accumulation or the running total ends in November or in the last month of that particular year or that particular group. So, and then again, 36 is where it begins again, all the way to November where it ends, and then it starts back at 49, and then ends up again in November here. So it's year to date, and it's not accumulative across the entire data set. And then the compound growth rate is pretty much the percentage difference. The only difference is that it's compound and it grows and accumulates as you move down the list. And one of the good things about having your variable on the shelf card is that you can simply take your cursor on it and you can see the explanation of whatever computation or measurements you have implemented on your tooltip. In which case, it tells us that using distinct count of orders, which is the variable that I've used, we calculate the current value as a percentage difference from the first value. Results are computed along year ship date, month of the ship date, and compound rate is computed. So that will provide you an explanation of what it is. And you can also double click on the variable or calculated variable on the shelf and be able to look at the function that's on the back end of the calculation that we brought here. As I said earlier, that although it's a quick calculation, easy to use, but in the back there are a series of functions that Tableau has to perform to be able to present us with this facilitation. And the next one is the year-over-year growth. As you can see, the first year is null because it starts from the second year, and it's just a comparison of growth based on each particular records on the previous year. So in February 2015, the count of orders was 36, and it was 30 in February 2014, so it's a 20% difference. And then it was 28th, and I apologize. Apparently, these dates are mixed up here. There you go. And then February in January it's 50, and it was 28th in 2014. So that difference is 78%. And then in February 2014 it was 30, and in February 2015 it's 36. That's a 20% growth. And the same thing with the March. It was 73 in 2015 and 60 in 2014. So that is a 21.67% growth here. So this the year-over-year growth pretty much compares the difference in growth and based on each particular month on the previous year. And if you see null or value for the year that you're doing your comparison on, it's okay because your calculation actually starts from the following year. And so the last one would be the year-to-date growth. It's the same thing as the year-over-year growth, except that it's performing its growth analysis in a compound manner. In other words, it's compound. And as you can see, we're not looking at particular data points anymore. We're actually looking at the compound of the growth for each of the months in accumulation. So these were explanation of quick table calculation. And lastly, there's something else I would like to cover before I end this video is the total option. So this allows you to select from what type of aggregation you would like to bring to your total. So let's say, as you know that by now that when you bring a measure variable on your Tableau, then Tableau has to aggregate them for you. Let's say, for example, when you bring the distinct count of orders onto this text field, automatically Tableau an aggregation for it. And in this case, it's the sum of the total accounts for each of these records. Because let's say for January, we have plenty of sales. So when you bring in a variable onto Tableau and you do not want to plot all the variables. And what Tableau does for you is it aggregates it for you. And AGG, that's what it means. It's the aggregation of a measure for you. And so while you aggregate your variable, you also have the ability to be able to select a type of aggregation. For example, we would like to bring this aggregation as average. As you can see, automatically we're looking at the averages here. All these numbers are now averages. Let's say you would like to look at the maximum numbers. So you can see that these are the maximum number of sales associated with each of these months. And also it has a couple of other, yeah, minimum, average, and sum. And you can also use the automatic, and by default automatic is the sum. As you can see, 5009 is the total number of distinct orders that we have had for 2014 to 2018. And you will also able to bring in totals and subtotals using the totals commands here. As you can see, I've already have the column grand totals embedded here. And let's say if you'd like to bring subtotals for each of the year, you can do that as well. And as you can see, for each of the year, we have the subtotals. But that's not the aim of this video. I just wanted to make sure that you're aware of these options as well. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope that this video was helpful to you. Thank you.